The restaurant fell silent as the CEO's voice cut through the ambient chatter like a knife. Nobody moved, not the busboys frozen mid-stride, not the hostess with menus clutched to her chest, and certainly not Sarah, the waitress whose eyes had filled with tears. But one man slowly rose from his table, napkin falling forgotten to the floor. What happened next would change everyone's lives forever. If you've ever witnessed injustice and wished someone would stand up, this story will touch your heart. Like, subscribe, and join our community of people who believe in standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. The Harvest Moon was Millfield's most upscale restaurant, all polished mahogany and crystal chandeliers that cast honeyed light across white tablecloths. It was the kind of place where reservations were made months in advance, where the wealthy and powerful came to see and be seen. Sarah Daniels hadn't planned on being a waitress at 32. She'd dreamed of finishing her nursing degree, but life had other plans. Her mother's illness had drained their savings, and after her passing, Sarah found herself with crushing medical debt and a half-completed education. The tips at Harvest Moon were good, essential for someone trying to rebuild their life one shift at a time. "Table 7 needs attention," Marcus, the floor manager, whispered as he passed. "VIP. Richard Harmon." Sarah's stomach tightened. Everyone in the service industry knew Richard Harmon, CEO of Harmon Technologies. His company might employ half the town, but his reputation for being demanding bordered on cruel. "Yes, sir," she replied, straightening her black apron and putting on her most professional smile. Richard Harmon sat with 3 other executives, their conversation punctuated by loud laughter that seemed designed to announce their importance. Sarah approached with practiced poise. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Harvest Moon. May I start you with some drinks?" Harmon barely glanced up. "Macallan 25, neat. And don't bring the house pour pretending it's top shelf. I can tell the difference." "Of course, sir." Sarah maintained her smile despite the implied accusation. "And for the rest of you gentlemen?" She took their orders efficiently, noting how Harmon's companion seemed to mirror his brusque manner. As she turned to leave, Harmon added, "And some bread." Quickly. "We have actual business to discuss." At a corner table, partially obscured by a decorative column, sat Michael Reeves and his 10-year-old daughter, Lily. It was a special night, Lily's birthday. Michael had saved for months to afford this dinner, wanting to give his daughter something extraordinary after a difficult year following her mother's death. "Dad, that man seems mean," Lily whispered, her eyes following Sarah as she hurried away from Harmon's table. Michael smiled gently at his daughter. "Sometimes people forget their manners, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean we should forget ours." Michael knew something about difficult circumstances. After his wife's sudden death from an aneurysm 18 months ago, he'd become a single father overnight, balancing his job as a high school English teacher with raising Lily. They'd moved to Millfield for a fresh start, away from the memories that haunted their old home. The evening progressed smoothly until Sarah returned to Harmon's table with their entrees. As she carefully placed Harmon's perfectly seared Wagyu steak before him, her hand trembled slightly, and a few drops of the red wine reduction splashed onto the white tablecloth. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. "Are you serious right now?" Harmon's voice rose sharply. "Do you have any idea what this suit costs? If even a drop had landed on me." "I'm so sorry, sir," Sarah said quickly. "Let me get something to clean that immediately." "Don't bother." Harmon's face had reddened. "Just get me your manager. I've had enough incompetence for one evening." Sarah's face flushed with humiliation as nearby diners turned to stare. "Yes, sir. Right away." As she turned, Harmon added loudly, "This is why some people will never amount to anything. No attention to detail. No wonder you're serving tables at your age." Sarah froze, the cruel words landing like physical blows. Her shoulders hunched slightly, and though she tried to maintain her composure, a single tear escaped down her cheek. Across the restaurant, Michael Reeves had heard every word. He saw the tear on Sarah's cheek catch the light. He saw how she tried to discreetly wipe it away. He saw her dignity even in humiliation. "Dad?" Lily whispered, concern in her young voice. "That lady is crying." Michael felt something shift inside him, a quiet anger, but also a certainty. He squeezed his daughter's hand. "Sometimes, Lily, we need to stand up for people, even when it's scary." He rose from his chair, napkin falling forgotten to the floor. The movement caught Harmon's attention, and several diners turned to watch as Michael walked deliberately toward the CEO's table. "Excuse me," Michael said, his voice calm but carrying in the now hushed restaurant. Harmon looked up, irritated at the interruption. "Can I help you?" "Actually, I think I can help you," Michael replied. "I couldn't help overhearing your comments to this waitress." Sarah stood frozen, her eyes wide with surprise. "This doesn't concern you," Harmon said dismissively. "This is between me and the management." Michael smiled slightly. "You made it everyone's business when you decided to humiliate someone just trying to do their job." The restaurant had gone completely silent now. Even the kitchen staff had paused to watch through the service window. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Harmon asked, his voice dangerous. "Yes, I do, Mr. Harmon. You're the CEO of Harmon Technologies. You employ hundreds of people in this town, including my neighbor and my students' parents." Michael's voice remained steady. "But right now, you're also someone who made a woman cry because of a tablecloth." Harmon's face darkened. "Listen, whoever you are. My name is Michael Reeves. I teach English at Millfield High." He extended his hand, which Harmon pointedly ignored. "And I think you owe this woman an apology." One of Harmon's companions snickered. "A teacher telling a CEO what to do. That's rich." Michael turned to the man with a thoughtful expression. "Is it? I've always thought how we treat people who can do nothing for us reveals more about our character than how we treat our equals or superiors." He turned back to Harmon. "My 10-year-old daughter is watching from our table. What would you like me to tell her about what she just witnessed? That it's okay to make someone feel small if you have enough money or power?" Something flickered across Harmon's face, perhaps embarrassment, perhaps recognition. The restaurant remained silent, the tension palpable. Then, from Michael's table, came a small voice. "Dad?" Everyone turned to see Lily, who had left her seat and now stood beside her father. She looked at Sarah with compassion beyond her years, then at Harmon without fear. "My mom always said that everyone deserves kindness," she said clearly. "Even on bad days." The simplicity of the child's words seemed to penetrate where Michael's could not. Harmon looked at the little girl, then at Sarah, who still stood with quiet dignity despite her humiliation. Something changed in the CEO's expression. Perhaps it was the mention of a mother no longer present, or the realization that his behavior was being witnessed by a child, or simply the unexpected confrontation with basic human decency. Harmon began, then cleared his throat. "You're right." He looked at Sarah directly. "I apologize for my behavior. It was uncalled for." The apology hung in the air, surprising everyone, perhaps even Harmon himself. Sarah nodded, professional even now. "Thank you, sir. I'll get your tablecloth changed right away." "That won't be necessary," Harmon said, his tone markedly different. "The tablecloth is fine." Michael placed a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Thank you for reminding us what matters, Lily." He nodded respectfully to Harmon and guided Lily back to their table. As they walked away, Harmon called after them. "Mr. Reeves?" Michael turned. "Join us for a moment?" It wasn't quite a request, but it wasn't a command either. After ensuring Lily was comfortable with the hostess watching over her for a few minutes, Michael approached Harmon's table again. "That was unexpected," Harmon said. Most people don't challenge me. Maybe they should, Michael replied simply. With respect. Harmon studied him. You said you teach at Millfield High? Yes. English literature. And you're raising your daughter alone? Michael nodded. For about 18 months now. Something shifted in Harmon's expression. My wife died when our son was 12. Cancer. He said it matter-of-factly, but old pain lingered in his eyes. I threw myself into work. Became successful. But my son barely speaks to me now. The confession surprised everyone at the table. Harmon himself seemed startled by his candor. I'm sorry to hear that, Michael said genuinely. Harmon nodded, then made a decision. The school district's literacy program. My foundation was considering a donation. I think we'll move forward with that. That would be wonderful for our students, Michael said, careful not to show too much excitement at what was clearly an olive branch. And, Harmon continued, looking toward Sarah who was helping another table, I think I need to make a more substantial apology. When Sarah returned to Harmon's table later, she found a handwritten note of apology and a tip that made her gasp. But more significantly, there was a business card with a note, Harmon Technologies has a scholarship program for employees pursuing nursing degrees. Call my office Monday. As the evening wound down, Michael and Lily prepared to leave, the birthday dinner having become something neither had expected. Harmon approached their table, more subdued than before. Mr. Reeves, I want to thank you. Michael looked surprised. For what? For the reminder that I've become someone my younger self wouldn't recognize. He glanced at Lily. And thank you, young lady, for your wisdom. Lily beamed. You're welcome, sir. I understand you're relatively new to Millfield, Harmon continued. Our company foundation runs a mentoring program for children who have lost a parent. Your daughter might benefit from it. And, he added with unexpected humility, we could use more advisors with your perspective. As they exchanged contact information, Sarah approached with a small cake with a candle. For the birthday girl, she said, smiling at Lily. On the house. The restaurant staff gathered to sing, Happy Birthday, and for a moment, the elegant Harvest Moon felt like a community rather than just a venue. 3 months later, Sarah started nursing school, supported by Harmon Technologies' Employee Scholarship Program, a position she'd earned on merit after being hired for their corporate wellness center. Michael found himself on the advisory board for Harmon's foundation, helping to reshape its community outreach programs. And Lily had joined the mentoring program, finding comfort in connecting with other children who understood her loss. As for Richard Harmon, the incident became a turning point. The man who had built an empire but lost connection with his humanity began the slow work of reconciliation, first with his estranged son, then with the community his company had always dominated but never truly served. It had taken a single father's courage and a child's simple wisdom to remind a powerful man of who he once was and could be again. And it had taken one moment of standing up against injustice to create ripples that would transform an entire community. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acts of courage, standing up when it would be easier to remain seated, speaking truth when silence would be safer, and remembering our shared humanity even when society's hierarchies try to make us forget. In Millfield, they still talk about that night at the Harvest Moon, when a CEO's cruelty was answered not with more cruelty, but with the quiet dignity of a waitress, the moral courage of a teacher, and the pure wisdom of a child who still believed that everyone deserves kindness, even on their bad days.